Word. Let's go to the book of Ephesians. Okay, before we let's read Ephesians first. I lied. Let's do it. Let's read Ephesians 2. Ephesians 2, verses 1 and 2. And it reads like this. As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live before you followed the ways of this world and the ruler of the kingdom of air. Everybody say kingdom of air. You were dead, but you were following these ways, and you were following the ruler of the kingdom of air, the spirit who was working in those who were disobedient. The ruler of the kingdom of air. I want you to focus on that. The ruler of the kingdom of the air. All right, let's go to Mark 11 really quick. Mark 11 really quick. Mark 11, we're going to start at verse 12. Mark 11, verse 12. We got it. Say, I got it. Reads like this. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was nothing or not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, may no one ever eat of your fruit again. And his disciples heard him say it. Somebody say it. Okay, let's go to verse 20. Verse 20, last part. In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said, Jesus, Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered. Here's Jesus' response. Have faith in God. Truly, I tell you, verse 23, if anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt it in their heart, but believes in what they say, it will happen. It will be done for them. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have already received it, and it will be yours. I want to approach this second part of the Sticks and Stones sermon series. We've been talking about sticks and stones may break my bones, but finish it for me, bud. Yeah, we determined last week that was a lie. That was a lie. That is no truth in that. That words do hurt us. That words do affect us. That words do have an impact on our lives. I've been appreciating the I Am Challenge. Many of you have been participating. Give yourself a hand if you've been participating in the I Am Challenge. For those who don't know, last week we focused on affirmation, the I Ams that you declare about yourself, talking to yourself, encouraging yourself. We were focused on that, and we challenged everybody to write down 10 I Am statements about themselves and to say them daily. We have a little video that I think kind of really was awesome, and I wanted to share it with you guys as we prepare.
I am beautiful. I am strong. I am a child of God. I am a good student. I am a good girl.
Good job, Karen. What are you? I am content, right? I am happy.
Cassidy was like, look, y'all playing with these I Ams, like, but can we make some noise for family and so many of you shared pictures and different things, and I was just grateful for the daughter of Dewan and Sydney to allow us to share that video because I think it constantly reminds us that these things have to be habit not just to us but to our children. We need to be mindful that they are taking in whatever we feed them, and not just physically. And as we feed our children, as we feed our communities, we need to be mindful of the words that we speak. And I'm so excited that they were speaking life into her. And so I am statements last week. We focused on affirmation of ourselves. But this week we're going to focus on words as warfare. This week we're going to talk about words that have power. And there's a couple things you got to know. I want to just give these to you really quick. Foundational principles of this series that kind of give you a framework of where we're coming from in perspective, because they're going to really run through the lifeline of this sermon. It says, first, you must believe that warfare happens spiritually and desire to know how to respond to it. Two foundational principles of this sermon series. You got to know this sermon series is built on the understanding that warfare happens spiritually. That something is happening or is in opposition to your future, to your destiny, to your identity in Christ, to your understanding and growth and discipleship. That there's something happening that doesn't want you to be all that God called you to be. Now, that's the first principle. The second principle that this sermon series is built on is that you must believe that you have access to a power beyond your humanity. Okay, I want to make sure we recap these things. That I have something that I can do. I don't think the enemy created us to just receive the attacks of the enemy with no power to respond. Right? So the question then becomes, if God has given me power, what is it? And what I think we determined last week is he's given us the power of our words. Everybody say words. Right? Sticks and stones may break my bones. Words have power. They have the ability to transform situations. So when we look at these two passages, I want to just take a moment and kind of walk with this for a minute. I said last week that this sermon series is an educational one. It's something that I want you to really take the principles, digest them, and really walk with them through your life. And these two different sermon passages seemingly are unconnected. They're disconnected. They don't make sense together. In Ephesians, Paul is talking to a community, and he's trying to get them to understand the struggles of their life. And then if we skip over to Mark, or really go backwards, we start to see that Jesus is walking with the disciples, and there's this moment that happens with this tree. And if you're just looking at a glance, these two passages don't connect. Pastor Ferguson, they make no sense together. They're just two random texts. But I want to suggest that what Paul is talking about in Ephesians is what Jesus is showing us in Mark. Okay, can we just talk for a moment? It's important that we understand the power of the air. Power of the air. The text in Ephesians tells us that Satan is the prince of the air. Everybody say the air. And this is significant. It's so significant because we're fighting a battle against an enemy that's kingdom lies in the air. So the question becomes, how do I fight something in the air? How do you fight something that is not physical? How do you fight something that resides in a place that you seemingly can't touch? And so I started to do my research and understand the power of sound. Everybody say sound. It's so significant, so significant. So I live in a house where the soundtrack has changed. The soundtrack of my house is full of babies crying, and the soundtrack of my house is now, that every parent knows what I'm about to say is true. Just affirm it to me by giving me an amen. You beg your children to talk. You beg them to say mommy and daddy. And now all my daughter says is mommy, 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 mommy. And here's the problem, everybody's mommy. I'm mommy, you're mommy, everybody's mommy. And she's talking, and the soundtrack of my house has changed. The soundtrack is very different. Like, it used to be Sports Center, and now, I ain't heard a sports update in years. It feels like it anyway. Right? The soundtrack has changed. Me and Ashley just stopped and looked at each other not too long ago, and we said, oh my God, when we walk out of the house, there's crying. When we walk in the house, there's crying. It's just the soundtrack has changed, and you just long for the 30 minutes when they go to sleep, and you just say, the house could be like this. I don't even remember what it was like. The soundtrack has changed. But one of the things I started studying was how sound traveled. It was interesting. It said that you have to understand that sound cannot get to a destination by itself. It has to travel through a medium. That no sound just arrives at a destination. It just doesn't appear. It has to travel through a medium. It can travel through water. It can travel through a stream. But one of the most prominent ways in which sound travels is through the air. Which is why, that many times you might have heard me talk about this before, when we think about the radio, they say they are live on that any telecommunication system would say that we are an organization that manages the airwaves. It is the air that sound travels through. And so whenever I release a sound, whenever I say something, whenever I speak, there is a sound that leaves my voice. It travels through the air and arrives at your ear. And depending, watch this, on the atmosphere determines how fast the sound travels. Which means that I was doing my research, Katie, I was doing my research, and it gave me some little, I don't know if y'all, me and my wife have an argument regularly in our life, I'm real transparent, I'll tell you what it is. It's over the air. Come on, like anybody when you're about to go to sleep, and she's like, I want the fan off. I'm like, I want the fan on. It's hot. Well, you had the fan on last night. Well, then we got to have a debate about sleep. But what is important to understand is that the air is important, because depending on the type of air you have in the room depends on how fast sound will travel. So what that means is, can you walk me for a little bit longer? So what that means is that if I don't take control of my air, I allow something else to control my sound. Okay, so let's go back to the passage. It said that Satan is the prince of the air. How do I fight an enemy that I cannot touch? I have to take control of the air. Okay, then I did a little more research and found out, Pastor Ferguson, that whenever you speak or release a sound, the air starts to move. That's the only way the sound travels. It moves through the air, but the air literally has to move every time I speak. Watch this. So the louder I speak and the more confident I speak, the faster the air moves out of my way. Okay, let me bring it over here to y'all. Which means that when I say something with confidence, when I say it with authority, when I say it like I believe it, when I say it like there's no doubt in my mind, the air not only moves, it moves faster, which means some of you have allowed the enemy to take control of the air. So you've been speaking about a situation, but because you haven't taken control of the air, the enemy has been taking that seed and letting it sit dormant. But when you take control of the air in your life, you start to speak and stuff starts to happen. You are fighting an enemy, but you've been fighting it the wrong way. I was trying to shave, but we have a gentleman at a church that we came from, Spring Creek. His name was Reverend Terry, and he was cutting my hair, and there was a lot of bumps. Don't judge me, don't judge me, don't judge me. And he said, "What did you do to your face?" I said, "Man, I was just trying to get it right. I was on the road, and I was looking fresh. So I took this razor and I just did it." He said, "Well, what direction did you go in?" I said, "Well, I just kind of went in whatever direction the hair was in. I wasn't really thinking about it." He said, "Son, you went against the grain. And when you go against the grain," he said, you will find that there is residue, that there are effects that are not positive. Watch this. He said, "You had the right tool, you just had the wrong application." Some of you understand you have words, but you just haven't been using them in a way that promotes your authority over your life. And so now we understand the power of affirmation from last week. Okay, I got to use my words with the right application. I got to use them to promote positive things. I got to use them to promote authority. I got to use them to promote confidence. And when I start using my words, the louder I speak and the more confident I speak, the faster the air moves. If you want to kick the enemy out of your life, start talking to it. Some of us have become so passive when it comes to the warfare of our lives. We become people who are victims and not champions. We are one of the greatest tragedies of the Christian church to me is that we have developed a culture of victims. So testimony service, no shade, tap your name and say no shade. But testimony service has become the place to be a victim. So what we do is we come and we gather to say, things are so bad. Things are so rough. There's mountains that I can't move. There are challenges that I can't overcome. There are so many doors that are closed. And church becomes a place that our words literally take on the form of our situation. But I wonder what would happen if we ever said, I'm going to stop allowing the enemy to control the air of my life, and I'm going to start to speak with such authority and such confidence that whenever I speak, he got to move. And whenever I say something, he got to move. And I'm going to do it with such a way that I want the enemy to know that when I declare this out of my mouth, there is nothing that you can do to stop the word that I speak from arriving at my miracle. Everything that comes from my mouth will manifest. Everything that comes from my mouth will determine my destiny. So I'm not going to allow you to control my air. Move him out of your air. Some of us have allowed him to live in our air. Some of us, if we be honest with you, need to go to our homes today and we just need to start speaking to the air. You gotta move. You gotta move. Because when you start speaking the air, I got to move the air in my life because my words have power. My words have power. Now, this is important because now I think we understand what Jesus is trying to help us to understand it, because watch this. My silence will suggest my submission. Please understand, we're good at praying quietly. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying there are some times where it is appropriate for you to use your voice for warfare. And if you are silent, you are communicating submission. When I'm silent, I let the enemy know you got this. When I'm silent, I let the enemy know this. You can do whatever you want to do. But when I start to speak against the enemy in my life, I let him know that I am not submitting to the chaos that you have caused. I am not submitting to the tragedy that you are trying to awaken. I am declaring that my life will be a different outcome. I am not submitting to you. Right? So how do we engage in this warfare? I think Jesus is trying to show us something. Many times when we look at this passage in Mark, I think we misappropriate it. We talk about him cursing the tree as if the tree had did something wrong. Like it messed me up, right? So Jesus, seemingly, this is what we normally preach it. Like Jesus is mad at the tree. Like Mr. Grimes, like he walked by the tree and he says, oh my God, it has no fruit on it, so nobody will ever eat from you again. And we preach it like that he's mad at the tree, but then it tells us that it was not the season for it to bear fruit. I'm like, man, that's kind of harsh, Jesus. How you mad at it for doing what it's supposed to do? So I started to wonder, maybe there was something more that he was trying to teach. Now you have to understand they call Jesus rabbi. So can I just teach for a little bit? In rabbinic culture, the rabbi would be followed by his disciples. You've got to understand this, that Jesus was not the only rabbi of the time, that many rabbis would have disciples that followed them. And so Jesus was one of many rabbis at the time who had followers. That we know they picked the right one now, 2,000 years later. Amen. Thank God for discernment. But many people, many rabbis had disciples, people who followed them, who trusted their teaching. And so they would follow them around, and the rabbi would have access to teach them things as they went. And this is so important, because many of us are familiar with the passage, carry the word in your heart. Well, why did they have to say that? Because there was no word to carry physically. Walk with me. So now, Jesus is teaching them this word. He's teaching them how to have power through example and through what he says. He says, okay, so it says that he speaks to the tree, and the key part that we miss sometimes is that the disciples heard him. Means they were exposed. Everybody say exposed. They had an opportunity to observe him at work. They had an opportunity to see something that didn't fully make sense to them yet. And that's a praise break right there for some of us, because some of you have to get into the habit of saying things that don't make sense to everybody around you and just say, wait till the story ends. It's going to make sense in a little bit. Jesus said something that didn't make sense. And look at what's so significant, y'all. It was just a tree. It said that Jesus spoke to a tree. Everybody say a tree. Okay. And then a couple verses later on, it says, then Peter remembered when he saw the tree. Anytime you create attention on something with God's power, it changes from an to a the. It means that now you've brought God's power to the problem. Now what was just a situation, that's the miracle, that's the testimony, that's something. He changes the narrative around the tree. And so it's so important that we understand what Jesus is trying to show us. He's not mad at the tree. He's trying to show his disciples something. He's trying to teach them a lesson about how to access power. He's trying to help them understand the power of words. He said, y'all are missing it. Let me show you how words work. They heard him say it. So then Peter makes an observation. Jesus, the tree that was just a random tree, that tree now is withered. What happened? Jesus says one thing. The first thing he says is, you have to see it. He said, have faith. Everybody say, have faith. Which means, I got to see something that is not real yet. Say it again. I got to see something that's not real yet. How many of us are stuck in a place in our lives trying to see something? And the problem is, it's not real yet, but our heart tells us it is. It's not real yet, but our faith tells it. And when you tap into a level of faith where you can see it before you see it, then something starts to change. But you gotta see it first. You can't speak to something you don't see. That's why we're around people sometimes, and they only can speak based on what they've seen in their lives. Have you ever been talking to somebody? We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday, and you ask them their goals, and when they finish, you be like, "That's it." Like, I mean, like, literally, like, you'll have a conversation with them and be like, so what do you want to achieve in life? And they'll be like, I'm just trying, I'm about to get it. And like, oh, man, that's it. Or I talked about this on Tuesday. Have you ever, like, moved away from home and went back to your hometown and talked to people who never moved away? And you'd be like, man, what you want to accomplish, man? I'm trying to go down to the G Beach, man, hit the ocean front. Like, that's it? Like, that's the scope of your goals? Like yeah, man, I'm trying to get the top. Like, that's it. And so what happens is many of us are victims of our exposure. Walk with me. We are victims of a small-minded community. We are victims of an environment that has told us what was possible. But Jesus says, I need you to understand the first step to making this thing work, the first thing to understanding how to make your words have power. He's a rabbi teaching his disciples something. I'll expose you to the outcome. Now let me show you the method. The method is, first, you got to have a voice of faith. What is the faith that is in your life? What is the challenge that is in your life? Do you see something different, or have you accepted it as your reality and your situation? Have you accepted that it's never going to change? Have you accepted that this is just the way it's going to be? Or have you made up in your mind that I want to see something that I've never seen before? Where's the level of your faith? He says, look, first up, you got to understand, before he tells them to use their words, he says your mentality has to be connected to your words. Have faith. Look at your neighbor and say, see it, man. See it. You got to see it. You have to see something different. Here's the second one, though, probably my favorite, because after I see it, I got to speak it. Ooh, it's going to be good. I got to speak it. Now, for those who think this is a spiritual concept, you got to understand the psychological implications of this. All psychologists have studied this, and they said that it is actually a psychological principle that whenever you say something aloud, it literally marries your mind and your heart to it more so than if you did it in silence. That's why many people who are trying to have better study habits, they'll tell you to say things aloud. Because when you say them aloud, your mind uses a different part of the brain. And so when you access this different part, it literally takes root in you in a way that it doesn't if you just communicate a message of silence. So you have to understand what Jesus is teaching is something before its time. He's teaching them a psychological principle that has not been written about yet. He's teaching them a principle about the power of speaking aloud. There's this word for this in rabbinic culture, and this word is very significant, and we're going to all say it together. Put that word on the screen. Ain't nobody even going to try, huh? Y'all just going to look at it. I said we're going to say it together. Here we go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Give it your best shot. Jesus. Oh my Lord. So that's the silent. So Erikat Fatiyim, okay? Erikat Fatiyim, it means, put it on the screen, it means to arrange it on your lips. See, this still happens today. See, many of us, what we're missing is the disconnect between the culture of the past and the culture of now. It was a rabbinic term, and it was a way in which they taught their disciples to say, it's not good enough for you to memorize it, you got to put it on your lips. Because when you put it on your lips, when you arrange it in such a way that it comes out, it gives you a greater access to power. So it's not just good to read it, but you also have to speak it. Because when you speak it, they change. Now, this is why psychologists will say this. When they're talking to people over and over and over again, follow me, watch this, y'all. They will say, we've had a breakthrough. Because we've spoken and gotten to a place where now the barrier or that thing that they couldn't move beyond or that thing that they couldn't wrestle with is now moving out of the way. And so look at what happened, y'all. Jesus doesn't tell them to say something about it. He says, say something to it. It's about to make sense. He says to them, don't say about the mountain, say to the mountain, you gotta move. Some of us, our greatest challenge is we've been talking about stuff, but we haven't been talking to stuff. And so while you don't talk to it, the enemy says, okay, good, I got this under control. I'm just sitting in the air and I'm relaxing. But when you start talking to the mountain, when you start talking to the issue, when you start talking to the challenge, something changes about the atmosphere. Jesus said, I don't want you to just complain every night. I don't want you to just make late night phone calls and talk about it. I want you to start talking to it. Because watch it, because breakthroughs are not the result of what you talk to. They're a result of what you talk to, rather, not what you talk about. Some of us have been frustrated with situations because we've been talking about it and we thought God was supposed to change it because we talked about it. Oh, y'all don't want to tell me. So we didn't cry about it. We didn't call our friend about it. We just said, oh Lord, the enemy just busy in my life. The devil is busy. He winning. I feel defeated. And everything you're saying is about the issue. You even talk to the pastor every week about the same thing. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing today. And every week you got the same problem. You are talking about it, but you ain't talking to it. When you make up in your mind that there's power in my words, you start warring against the thing that's warring against you, and you start making a decision to say, I don't got time to just talk about this thing. I'm going to talk to every mountain, every devil, every challenge, every tribulation, every issue, every barrier, every wall. You got to move. Some of y'all been struggling because you won't talk to it. Make some noise and call in the back. Won't he do it? I know y'all can't get it. Moving on. You gotta talk to that thing. You gotta talk to it. We live in a culture, though, can I be honest? We live in a culture, though, where we are afraid of conflict. We are a culture that will run from conflict. We are a culture that if you don't like me, I just don't gotta like you. If we got an issue, I just won't talk to you then. We will work in groups with people and not socialize them. We will come to church, oh my God, and be like, I know she saw me last week when she walked by. So because she didn't speak to me, I don't gotta speak to her. We will develop a culture where we are afraid of conflict because we are the culture now where I don't gotta deal with you. If I don't like you, don't like me, I don't like you, we good, we just live our lives. Just live your life. I don't need you. We will avoid conflict. And here's the problem. This principle is transferred into our spiritual life. We live a life spiritually that is void of conflict. Because we've been taught that Christianity is the absence of conflict. Christianity is all I need is Jesus. Only God can judge me. You know, he gonna fight on my behalf. The battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. We love that one. So because it's his, I don't gotta say nothing about it, I don't gotta do nothing. I'm just gonna wait on him. Because the battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. What's the point of me doing something? But what if Jesus is trying to teach us something in this passage? What if Jesus is trying to help us to understand that some things won't move out of your life until you tell them to? What if Jesus is trying to help us to understand that he says, look, I need y'all to understand, disciples, that I did what I did to the tree, and I wanted you to hear me do it. Look at what he said in the first half of the passage. It said they heard him say it. So he said, okay, I want to expose you to the results. Now let me tell you the method. You got to have faith. You got to see something, and now you got to speak to it, because when you start speaking to it, stuff is going to start happening in your life, but you got to be confident enough to believe it, because when you speak, something happens. There's power in your words, and you gotta tell the mountain, move. Why y'all do this to me up here? Move. One more time. Move. I like it. All right, no more. Move. So here's the thing. I gotta pray for me. I gotta see it. I gotta speak to it, Jesus says. And then I gotta seek it. Okay. He said, Jesus answers, have faith. So you gotta see something. It may not be reality. Because if God told me I got power to change my life, if God told me that I'm just not a victim, but I also can be a champion, then that must mean I have the ability to change my situation, but I can't change what I'm not going after. I got to see something beyond my reality. So my faith is the first step, but then if I want to really win this war of my life, I want to win this war of my mind, I got to speak to it. Like I'm losing because the mountain is in front of me, but if I have the ability to move the mountain, all I got to do is speak to it. So I see it, I speak to it, but then he says something very interesting in the latter part of the passage that I thought was a little odd. I mean, it almost seems like the prosperity gospel, but I just want to preach it the way Jesus said it. He said, therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for, believe that you have received it. And then before that, he says, and if you tell it and don't doubt in your heart and believe what you say will happen, it will. Which means that when I start speaking to some stuff in my life, I shouldn't continue to walk around like it hasn't happened. And when I start speaking to some stuff in my life, I shouldn't still act the same way. See, some of us, we're going to leave and we're going to speak to it, and then we still going to talk the same way about it. We're going to speak to it and still be discombobulated. We're going to speak to it and still have an attitude. We're going to speak to it and still be emotional. But God said, look at what Jesus said. He said, after you speak to it, believe it's already done. Believe you're about to receive it. Believe it's on the way. So don't just speak it. Start looking for it. Start seeking it. Start saying, yep, it's coming this way. Maybe not that way. It's coming this way. Maybe not that way. It's coming this way. And you got to start looking for what you proclaim, because if you don't, people will say your words have no power. But Jesus says the faith that you activate, you got to see it, speak it, and then start looking for it. It's coming. It's coming. I don't know if it's coming this way, but it might be coming this way. I don't know. That door don't work. I got to go over here, because I'm not going to complain about what I spoke to. I'm not going to complain about what I declare. I'm not going to complain about power. If I believe God can do it, then why am I still crying? All I got to do is start looking for it. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from back here? What am I looking for? I'm looking for what I said. Because I said the mountain got to move. And if the mountain got to move, the mountain got to move. So what? I'm looking for it. I'm seeking it. I'm gonna wait right here, but I'm still looking. I'm seeking what he's about to do, because I don't got time to use words that have no power. So if I speak it, you better start seeking it. I said it's gonna move. It's about to move. I said it's coming through. It's coming through. I said I got victory. I'm waiting on the championship. I'm waiting on the belt. I'm waiting on the victory. I dare you to high five your neighbor and say, look for it, look for it, look for it, look for it. See, the enemy is betting. The enemy is betting on the fact that you're going to say some stuff that you don't believe. So he's not afraid of what you speak if you don't seek it. He said, because watch this, seeking requires you move from where you are to where you're going. The enemy's not afraid of you speaking if you stay still. But if I speak it and then I start looking for it, if I start running into the mountain, if I start saying, come here real quick, because see, some of us, our issue is, Mr. Grimes, can you come here real quick? Some of us, we got mountains in our life, and stay right next to each other, facing me. Some of us got mountains in our life, and the problem is, we keep talking about it, but we ain't speak to it yet. But after you speak, that means whatever you're asking God for is on the other side of the mountain. Brace yourself. So now, I don't just speak it and then sit in fear. I don't just speak it and sit in silence. I speak it and then I say the mountain is about to move. I just got, okay, it ain't moving that time. I gotta get a runner's. Because if I speak it, I'm gonna get something on the other side. There's something waiting on me. I need somebody to stand up on your feet and start to tap yourself and say, I'm gonna seek it. I'm gonna seek it. It's coming my way. It belongs to me. Somebody say, I got it. Come on, high five your neighbor. Say, I'm looking for it. 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 Because my words have power. When I speak to the mountain's gotta move. The mountains, it gotta move. He said, don't speak about it. Speak to it. What am I gonna leave here speaking to? The enemy, for many of us, has controlled the air of our lives. And every word that we put in the atmosphere, he snapped. Because we haven't spoke to it. But after you speak to it, you gotta run to it. You gotta go after it. And as you run, God said that mountain, that wall, that thing that was standing in your way is gonna have to move. It's gonna have to move. It's gonna have to move. Here it is. I want you to do me a favor. Here's the challenge for the week. It's the challenge for the week. Challenge for the week is this. Because it's not enough for us to be, we talked about this last week, emotional at church. An experience that gives us a momentary gratification. And then we leave and be the same all week long. So the challenge is this. If you really want to see God move, Last week we had to write 10 I am statements, but this week the challenge is this. I want you to write down one mountain that's moving in your life. Note you, I didn't say that you want to move. I said that is moving. Well, one mountain, and then place it somewhere visible. Place it at the top of your desk. Place it on the refrigerator. Place it somewhere you're going to see it. And I want you to speak to. I don't got look. This week, make a promise to yourself. I ain't complaining about it. I ain't venting about it. I ain't crying about it. I don't got time for that no more. I really don't have the patience for it anymore. It really has done me no good. Because the more I talk about it, the more it sits there. The more I talk about it, it ain't changed nothing. But this week I'm talking to some stuff. This week I'm letting you know you're moving today. If you don't move today, you're moving tomorrow. If you don't move tomorrow, I'm going to keep speaking. Because he told me if I speak to it, the mountains gotta move. Speak to it. Speak to it. Many people are saying, this warfare thing, this thing, the enemy's winning. No, he's not winning. We just haven't accessed our power. Just haven't accessed our power. Speak. Speak to it. Can you hold the hand of your neighbor today? Hold the hand of your neighbor today. Go speak to some things today. Today I'm gonna do altar call a little bit different.